Winter can be a challenging time, especially where our health and fitness is concerned. However, what if we didn't just have to survive winter? I've got 6 tips lifted straight from the pros playbook as to how they get through their off season and prepare for the next year, so that we just don't want to survive winter, but we can actually thrive during winter and really hit the ground running next year and smash those goals.
Welcome to the Ride and Thrive podcast with me, your host, Dave Shields. Hey folks, welcome once again. And yes, we've got 6 tips lifted straight from the pros today to help us get through winter and really plan for next year so we can make next year the best year yet. So let's get straight into it with tip number 1. That is goal setting. Now, the pros will use this time of year to sit down with their teams and assess the situation and plan for next year. And they will set some goals of what they want to achieve. Now, it could be the likes of Pogacar going for the Tour de France, or Vingegaard has hinted so far that he might target the Giro next year. Or it could be other riders who may be looking to win stages at Grand Tours or some one-day races. But they will have a list of goals that they want to achieve. And we can too. So, for example, for me, for my goals for next year, I've set a juicy goal of cycling 100 miles sportive, and that wants to be with the RAF Association, because I used to be in the RAF, so I thought I wanted to support those guys, and they normally ran out of an RAF base. So I'm going to book onto one of those as soon as they become available. I'm going to plan that. And also, I want to do a coast-to-coast ride here in the UK, which is called the Way of the Roses, and it goes from Morecambe on the west coast to Bridlington on the east coast. It's 170 miles, and the reason I want to do that one is it goes through my hometown. So I plan to do that over 2 days, and it's 170 miles, and stop over at the house on the way through. I'm going to rope in a couple of mates to that as well, hopefully, and make it a bit of a social event. Now, both of those goals, they do scare me a little bit. I can't lie. 100 miles in a day and then 170 miles in 2 days. They're quite big challenges, and that's how it should be. Your goals should be there to inspire you, to make you want to get out on your bike or to get out training. So set yourself a couple of goals for next year. That's number 1. Number 2. A physical checkup. Okay, so the pros will undergo a battery of tests at this time of year. They will have FTP tests, functional threshold power test, heart rate threshold test, VO2 max, lactate threshold testing. And they'll also get a physical exam as well, just to see where they're at so that they can set some benchmarks down for their training. Now, of course, I'm not really interested in all that stuff, but I am interested in my physical health. And it's a great time of the year to get yourself down to the doctors and get yourself a checkup, especially if you're getting on in a few years, if you know what I mean. Now, I did this recently. I went down for my checkup. Now, if you're over 50 in the UK, I think you are entitled to a free sort of health checkup. They can check your heart, and your weight, your height, weight check, and blood pressure, listen to your heart and all that stuff, and let you know if you're on the right lines. You can even let them know that you're planning to do a big ride, you're going to start training, and they'll give you some advice and let you know how you're getting on physically. Now, so just to share a little bit of what I've done, I went to the doctors and for a checkup, and it turns out I've got a rather enlarged prostate. Now, I just wanted to raise awareness of this because I wouldn't have known had I not gone to the doctors. So, fellas, especially, it's worth going to get a checkup. I'm having a series of tests going onto that as well to see where that's at. But it's worth getting a physical checkup just to see where you're at. Okay, that's number 2. Number 3, strength training. Okay, so you won't be getting out on your bike much, maybe, because the weather's pretty bad. I know I haven't been out on my bike much at all, but I have done a bit of strength training. I've got a strength training program to get me through the winter. And the pros, again, I've read a few negative things, or I've heard or listened to a few negative things. I'll just mention those to you. Quinn Simmons, who rides for Little Trek, he was on a podcast, and he was saying that he was deadlifting heavy and squatting heavy, and he found that it affected his performance on the bike. So he's kind of been put off strength training. Geraint Thomas has expressed a dislike for strength training as well, saying it gets in the way of his riding. Now this is where we're going to differ, because my goals for myself and for my clients is always injury prevention first. Then it is longevity, and then it is performance. So we're looking after our physical health, and performance on the bike and performance, elite performance in general doesn't necessarily mean peak fitness or peak health and fitness. So strength training is one of the single best things that we can do to look after our bodies, especially as we're getting older, to see us into old age. Now, you needn't be getting, lifting heavy weights and squatting and, getting to the gym. You get a few kettlebells at home, then that will, do the job. I've got a few videos on my channel showing you how to use kettlebells and doing various exercises, and I'm planning to bring out a strength training 101, so you can follow that if you don't know how to get started. Now, if you are a member of a gym, then there's always personal trainers around or fitness instructors, and they will help you to get started, basically. Now, again, going back to my priorities for strength training, injury prevention is number one, and that includes not getting injured lifting heavy weights. So form is always first, and when anyone starts a program with me, it always starts off with body weight, just so that you can dial in the movements and get your body used to doing those movements before you actually start stressing it and putting it under load. So injury prevention is always first. Learn the moves. Get a coach if you need to, or watch some videos on YouTube and make sure you're using correct form. So number 3 was strength training. Number 4 is nutrition and recovery. Now, the pros, they get about a month off. I think, remember Geraint Thomas saying in one of his books that they get like 3 weeks, I think, in November, where they finished their season and they haven't started their winter training camp yet, and they get to go home and just have a bit of a blowout. But he said even then they don't go mad. And I think the message with this one is to get through winter without damaging all the good things you've done throughout the summer, and putting yourself on such a back foot that you spend 4 or 5 months of the next year just trying to catch up and get yourself down to the weight that you were the previous year. We want to use this to hit the ground running. So what does that look like practically? Well, it's almost like eating at maintenance, not overdoing things. I mean, I'm preaching, probably preach to the converted. You probably know this, and it's really hard, especially at time of recording. We're coming into December. There's mince pies on, at every turn. Anywhere you go out, that people are offering you your stuff. So it's really easy to give in. So the main thing that I say to people is not to press the fuck it button. Okay, so the fuck it button is where you're on a Friday, for example, and you've been good all week. You've hit your macros, you've hit your goals, you've not overeaten. Then you get to Friday and you go out with your mates, or you go out with your family. You have a few beers, a couple of glasses of wine, you have a load of food, and you wake up the next day with a feeling a bit rough, and instead of getting back on it, you think, oh, fuck it, it's Saturday. I'll just do Saturday, Sunday, then I'll get back on it Monday. And I think that's the danger, really. And so what you really should do is just reset on the Saturday and say, right, I'll put that one down, we'll chalk that one off. I'll get straight back on it on the Saturday, and I'll be good for Saturday, Sunday. Because you can easily undo 1 day's worth of poor food choices, but 3 days worth of poor food choices, you're going to spend the next week trying to play catch up in terms of your calories. I don't want to put a whole dampener on things, and it totally depends on your goals. So this is supposed to be helping you to hit the ground running in the next year. So What you can do is you can prioritize your hydration, so making sure you're getting enough to drink with your meals and prioritizing protein. Now, turkey is all around us at this time of year, and that is a great source of protein. So actually, Christmas dinner is a healthy, balanced meal of veggies and protein and a couple of spuds on there. What's not to like? So let's not overdo it in terms of the mince pies and the stollen cake, which is a particular weakness of mine at this time of year. So if you're having 2 mince pies a day, then just have 1 mince pie. If you're having 1 mince pie a day, then have 1 mince pie every other day. Just try and be mindful of what you're eating. And, I wouldn't never say not have a mince pie or don't have a drink. Just remember that if you've got a special occasion, you're going out with family, don't be the killjoy who sat there going, I'm not going to have a drink, I'm not doing this. Have a drink, have something to eat, then the next day just get back on it, do some training and get back on the hydration and the protein. In terms of recovery, what you can do is you can dial in your sleep patterns, in your recovery, your mobility. Get yourself a little mobility routine. You can work on your flexibility. You can do that indoors quite happily when you're watching Netflix on an evening, for example. Getting in your sleep routine, getting in the habit of turning off your phone on an evening before you go to bed, so that it's not going to keep you awake or keep your mind racing as you're going to sleep. Try and get 7 or 8 hours of decent sleep a night. These are all positive things that we can do that don't cost us anything. And the winter months is an ideal time to get into doing those. Okay, that was number 4. Number 5 is cross training. Okay, so cross training is about obviously doing something else other than cycling. I mentioned earlier that I don't go out on my bike much in the winter. I'm a bit scared of the leaves on the road, and the ice and stuff. So I do go out on it occasionally when we have a nice day, which is very rare in the UK these days in the winter. So cross training is a great thing. Now I want to point you in the direction of Wout van Aert and Mathieu van der Poel. Now they stay competitive during the off season. They actually take up cyclocross, which is cycling across grass basically, and they do some races. They enter the Cyclocross World Cup. Tom Pidcock does a bit of mountain biking. Back to Quinn Simmons again from Little Trek. He is mentioned on that same podcast I mentioned earlier that he likes a bit of ice hockey in the off season. And I think the message here is to be active. What I like to do, I like to do a bit of running, and I'll do a park run. I'm not really built for running. I do end up getting really heavy legs and hurt legs, but it's good to get out the door. I always feel invigorated after I've been for a run. Nothing fancy, just 5k. Like I say, a park run on a Saturday is a good thing to do. I've also done a challenge. I'm doing a challenge throughout December. You might have seen it on YouTube, and it's basically an advent calendar challenge where I pick out a random exercise that I've written. I've written a load of exercises down, tore them all up, put them into a jar, and I pull one out every day, and I have to do that exercise. And it's something like kettlebell swings, or a 5k run, or a 20 clean and press, or goblet squats. And I just do that, and it's a fun thing to do, a little challenge, and it keeps me active every day. And I like to do something every day, even if it's a bit of mobility. Or a walk. It's good to get your walking dialed in. So a bit of cross training, get out there, do something, I think is the message, rather than doing nothing. Okay, finally we get on to number 6, which is kit and equipment. Oh, this is a great one. So we can first of all look after our bike, all right, so we can give it a bit of love. Now, at the least, we want to be making sure it's clean, especially if you're going to store it away for winter. If you are using it out in winter, remember to hose it down, get all the grit and the mud and the salt out of all the gears, and just make sure it's clean. You want to consider getting the gear cables changed. That can work wonders, especially if your gears are slipping or it's not snappy changing. Have a look at your brakes, making sure your brakes are all good. Get them changed if you need to. what else can you do? Check the condition of the tyres. Do you need to get some new tyres? Yeah, so there's all those things that we can do. Or you could put it into your local bike shop and give it a quick service. I know they are quite expensive, but I think it's worth doing that in the off season. You could also consider getting a bike fit. Something else that the pros will be doing now will be getting a bike fit. And also Visma Lease Bike, I mentioned earlier in the month about Visma Lease Bike getting out to Paris-Roubaix route with a few riders, Wout van Aert I think it was, and they were checking the tyre pressure inflation system, the new Grava system. So they're doing a bit of equipment testing. So getting familiar with all your kit and things like that is the pros are doing that, and it's quite a good thing to do. And I quite like tinkering around with my bike as well. Okay, folks. So that wraps up this episode. Now, got some value from this? Please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Some comments would be great as well on what do you do during the off season? Do you do anything? Do you do training? Do you get out on your bike? Some people like to go riding regardless. They do night riding, they do all sorts. So let me know if that's you. Do you do that, or do you do nothing? And do you want to do more? Check out my beginner cyclists guide. I'll put a link in the description to that. It's free, and it's just a PDF with a few training, nutrition notes in there, and also about kit and equipment. Especially if you're new to cycling, you can have a look at that. And that's it, folks. So until next week, that's me clipping out. Bye for now.